Hi there. My name's Eric Migicovsky. I'm the founder of Pebble. We make a smartwatch. A smartwatch is a watch that talks to your smartphone. It can run apps and show you notifications. I'm here. I'd love to take the chance today to talk a little bit about the Pebble story, not just the hardware, but also how we started a hardware company, in these days. I think that a lot of the time people kind of assume that hardware is a difficult thing to get started in, and I'd love to be able to show you a couple anecdotes from our story about how it might not be the most impossible thing to do. I'd also like to talk about where the wearable industry is going and what we see as kind of the next trends in wearables. But I'll start it off 5 years ago in a dorm room. I was attending TU Delft in the Netherlands. I was studying industrial design. I was there on exchange, and I saw, while studying industrial design, all of my friends were constantly carrying around sketchbooks. They were drawing beautiful chairs and furniture and cars, and I didn't really have the drawing skills to be able to compete. But I loved cycling in the Netherlands and over all of Europe. People cycle constantly. I had a brand new phone, and I was cycling down the cobblestones, along the canals in Holland, and I just did not want to drop my brand new phone into the canal. So I came up with the idea for a watch that could display incoming calls, emails, text messages on your wrist without having to take your phone out of your pocket. I just didn't have the skills that most Dutch people seem to be born with innately. So this is the first prototype. It's literally an Arduino, the circuit board of an Arduino, wired together with a display from a Nokia 3310, which was, at the time, one of the most popular cell phones ever. I think that Nokia sold over 100 million of that one design. So there are a ton of these displays floating all around the world, and I was able to actually just pick it up and solder it together. This was kind of like prototype 2.0. You can see that it's still before we engaged an industrial designer. So it's me, an engineer at heart, just putting together the most simple sort of enclosure around a circuit board that I had designed. The first version of our product actually worked with BlackBerry. You might remember BlackBerry. It was an extremely popular cell phone at the time. Has a keyboard. Might ring a bell. I was based in Waterloo, Ontario, which is the home of Research in Motion. Still is the home today of BlackBerry. And we built, me and a couple of other friends from university, we put together this first version. It was a working prototype, so it was big and bulky, but it got the job done, and it really helped us explain to potential investors, potential customers, what the product was, because we physically had something that worked to a certain degree. Evolving from there, we met an industrial designer who started putting in a little bit of pro bono time. Now, an industrial designer adds a really important aesthetic element to the project. So we're a bunch of engineers. We built the circuit board. We built some software. But we weren't able to wrap this hardware in something that people could actually imagine putting on their wrist. So when we started working with an industrial designer, we were slowly moving from sketches to 3D prints to actual milled steel out of a CNC milling machine. And we were slowly getting to the point where people could actually imagine putting this product on their wrist on a daily basis. Our first product was called Impulse, and as I said, it worked with BlackBerry. It provided access to calls, emails, text messages, and we assembled it in our garage, actually. The very first circuit boards were made in China, so there's several places that you can practically email, send them the designs for your product, and ask them to manufacture the product, or manufacture the circuit board. We ended up doing the final assembly and test in the garage, hiring a couple high school students to provide some of the legwork. And this is us testing the circuit board on a little circuit board test setup. I don't know how many of you are familiar with SparkFun, which is this amazing resource for electronics. We put in our fair share of orders with SparkFun and got a lot of the techniques that we use for manufacturing from them as well. But eventually, we were able to sell the first several hundred Impulse watches just through our website. We basically we had this funny thing where we leaked some of the information to blogs. Before we were just still a bunch of high school, university students working out of the garage. But you still can leak things to blogs even if you're at that stage. We sent like fuzzy photographs of this cool new smartwatch, and people picked it up. That's how we started building an email list. We generated a list of several thousand people who are interested in buying a smartwatch back in 2009. And then we continued on to build the first couple hundred, first couple thousand. We got accepted into a program called Y Combinator in the Valley, and we moved the company from Waterloo, Ontario, down to Silicon Valley. And that's when we really sort of figured out what the next phase of the project would be. The first phase was definitely creating a watch that could provide instant alerts, notifications, caller ID, that kind of stuff. But when we got down to the Valley and started talking to people like Paul Graham and other mentors of ours, we started focusing on the idea of running apps on the wrist. There were a lot of other products around that time, Fitbit, various wearables that would allow you to track your fitness or track your exercise, but none of these devices offered an open platform that you could actually write apps for. And there was literally nothing that you could just prototype your idea and get started with. So with Impulse, we actually created a very simplistic SDK to enable people to write apps for the watch, but it was totally complicated, and it wasn't really designed from the ground up to be a watch that other people could write apps for. So we went back to the drawing board in 2012. This was right around WWDC 2011 when iOS 5 came out. iOS 5 provided, finally, an API that would allow us to make a watch that worked with iPhone. And so up until this point, I would introduce myself. I would tell someone, I'm working on this watch that talks to your smartphone. And the number one question would be like, oh, great, I've got an iPhone. When are you going to work with iPhone? And I would always have to answer them like, I wish we could do it, but we just haven't been able to get access to the right APIs. And then finally in 2011, we got them. So we went back to the drawing board. We brought the idea of iPhone compatibility, Android compatibility, together with an open platform that anyone could write apps for. And we came up with Pebble. We thought that this idea was finally what would help us break into the mainstream. We had sold about 1,500 watches, Impulse watches. So we had actually, made around $200,000 in revenue. We went to venture capitalists. We went to people that we knew, and pitched them the idea for Pebble. This is the beginning of 2012, and I was met after 30 days of pitching with absolutely no support. Of the 15 to 20 VCs and angels and people that I'd met with, not a single one was interested in signing on the dotted line. So in April 2012, we had about $60,000 left in the bank, which could have lasted us a fair amount of time. But we had this design for Pebble, and we knew that we had to bring it to market. So we decided to launch a Kickstarter. And a few people may have seen this. We launched on Kickstarter in April 2012. And over the course of 30 days, we were able to attract 85,000 people to support our Kickstarter project. It was mind-blowing. It was an experience that I could not have predicted in my wildest dreams, but it gave us the financial resources and really the drive and the support of our backers to go into production with Pebble. I immediately hired a team of 10 of my friends, and we flew back and forth to China for about 6 or 7 months. And after that period of time, we were able to go into mass production with Pebble. And in January 2013, we started shipping the watch. It's very different from our first watch. Our first watch was metal. It had a color screen. It worked exclusively with BlackBerry. On the other hand, we learned a lot from our first product, and we funneled all of that knowledge and all of that advice that we had gotten from our early customers into Pebble. E-paper display means that it could be read outside under direct sunlight. It's fully waterproof. It's also much smaller and much lighter than our first version. And that is what I think helped sort of trigger this, this success. We had brought together existing technology. Nothing we did was very unique. It wasn't like we were creating our own electronics. But we put it together in a novel fashion that I think really appealed to people all around the world. So the current state of Pebble is that there's way over 100,000 watches out there in the field today. There's been over 1 million downloads of apps onto people's Pebbles. And there's also over 10,000 developers that are actively working and writing apps for Pebble. It's also an extremely worldwide movement. So during our Kickstarter period, about 55% of our backers were from the US, and 45% were from outside of the US, which is interesting considering we were an English-only product at that point. Since then, the demographics have actually shifted, and the majority of our customers are from outside of the US. And for us, that's really incredible, because it means that what we did on Kickstarter, we wouldn't have been able to even begin to see that type of an international support for our product if we had launched exclusively at a retailer in the US. We wouldn't have been able to even sort of feel that draw for the product. But what this has meant is that there's been a whole bunch of different apps created on the platform. And I'd like to talk about 5 different categories of apps that we've seen become really successful on Pebble. So the bread and butter of a smartwatch is notifications. The ability to feel a vibration when you get a new message, an email, call, whatever, pops up on your watch. You can quickly glance down and see the context of that message. It's great because it allows you to make better time management decisions. So imagine running for the bus or running to work or running out of a meeting. You're feeling this vibration in your pocket from your phone, and you have no idea really what's happening. With Pebble, you can instantly see what's happening and decide whether you want to answer that call or take that message or respond right that second, or whether you can do it at a later time. So that's kind of the bread and butter. There's also sports and fitness. That's become a very large portion of apps for Pebble. Remote controls was something that we had not suspected, but our backers actually created a lot of apps that allow Pebble to act as a remote control for something on the internet, something on your phone, or something around your house. Watch faces play into the customizability factor of Pebble. So there's thousands of watch faces that people have created to be able to give them a personal look on their wrist. And of course, where would we be without gaming on the wrist? Let me jump into a few examples. So on the sports and fitness side, we noticed that there were a lot of apps that people were already using on their phone, like Runkeeper and most recently Runtastic. So we built a built-in sports functionality into Pebble that allows a smartphone app like Runtastic to actually send information to the watch, so the watch acts as a heads-up display for your phone. Pebble doesn't act by itself. It works in the system with your phone, so it doesn't have to have a GPS built into the watch. It can actually use the GPS on your phone. Golf has been another very useful application for Pebble. There's also been soccer and football referees who have built apps that allow them to track scores and track fouls right on the watch. And there's even this fairly enterprising app called the 7-Minute Workout, which walks you through a very high-intensity workout right on your wrist, and then cycling as well. On the remote control side, people have been building really interesting applications that allow you to use your Pebble in your daily life, kind of like on an instantaneous basis. So there's the simple stuff like remote controlling your music when your phone's playing in a dock. But there's also been pretty cool apps, like one where you can pre-program it to call your wife or to turn on lights around your house. Someone has even used Pebble to control their microwave. Someone has built a Nest app for Pebble so you can control the thermostat in your house. And people have even started using Pebble for payments and for ticketing, so that if you're running through the airport, you can just carry the ticket for your flight on your wrist. Volkswagen is one of the larger companies that has been working on Pebble apps, just prototyping and trying to playing with different possibilities for remotely starting your car, opening windows, even playing with the temperature in your car as well. And then on the alerts and notifications side, there's the simple stuff, the regular stuff like emails and calls, but there's also Bitcoin prices on your wrist, calendar appointments, vibrations before different appointments, and weather, which has been this kind of like a non-stop stream of really interesting weather apps that have been able to bring information that's normally locked on your phone or on the internet right into your daily life. My personal favorite app right now is Evernote for Pebble, which brings to-do lists, contact lists, and even speaker notes right onto your watch. Some of the most interesting applications of Pebble have actually been around the customizability of the watch. So we built it with a little bit of physical customizability. There's 5 different colors that you can select from. There's also a standard 22mm watch strap, which means that you can actually buy any strap you want off the internet and attach it to the watch. And a lot of other Kickstarter projects have actually popped up to create accessories for Pebble, like bike mounts and other straps. But there's also 2 main websites that the Pebble community has built. One is called My Pebble Faces. And when we launched our SDK back in April, we didn't actually have an app store. We had no ability, we didn't have a built-in ability for people to share their apps. But the community rose up and built this amazing website that hosts over 2,000 watch apps and watch faces right now. There's also a website from Germany called Watch Face Generator, which enables anyone, whether you're a programmer or not, to upload a bitmap or upload a design to the web and instantly create your own watch face just by going through a little graphical getting started. You can design your own watch face. And on that website, there have been over 80,000 watch faces created. And I was trying to think about this one day, have there actually been 80,000 different watches, physical watches, designed in the world ever? Or has this one website eclipsed the entire number of watches in the world? It's pretty cool when you see people, back a project on Kickstarter, receive their watch in the mail, and then immediately begin using it in a way that perfectly suits their life. It's quite empowering, and it's one of the coolest things that I have, which is every day I get to wake up and put on a product that I helped make, and then also see people from all around the internet posting pictures and videos of different ways that they're using Pebble in their everyday life. Now, in the future, I think that the potential for smartwatches is actually to become a contextual information resource. So instead of having to download apps and go through menus and click and find the exact app that you want to use, I believe that apps will automatically start and be loaded on your watch depending on the context that you're in. So if you're in a busy day and you're running around from meetings to meetings, your watch will automatically become the best possible watch at any given period of time. So for example, at the beginning of the day, your watch may display traffic and weather information with a small calendar of things that you're going to be doing that day. But as you progress through the day, it will pop up with transit information to get to your next meeting or your next event, and then end the day on maybe a more casual note where you change from having a business watch face to a casual. One of the most popular watch faces on Pebble right now is actually a tiny Mario, and he will hit the break bricks with his head on every minute. And so I think that the progression from an extremely kind of useful, instantaneous information device to a personalized, wearable piece of jewelry will be very smooth, and will also mean that people will not have to buy more than one device to put on their body. They'll be able to just use the device that's already on their wrist to work within the context of their everyday life. I'm here partially to talk about Pebble, but I'm also really keen on meeting potential app developers and people who are also interested in working on smartwatch apps. We have an open platform. If you just go to developer.getpebble.com, you can learn about the different SDKs and APIs that we have. But I'm also going to be here all day today chatting with people about how can you bring a tiny component of your mobile app onto the wrist. What's the micro interaction? What's the tiniest useful bit of information or input and output that you could bring from the smartphone and bring to the watch, because the watch is not designed to replace your smartphone. It always works in context, in symbiosis with your phone. So at Pebble, we always think about what's that little core element that we can help a developer of a smartphone app bring onto the watch. And that's the cool thing about Pebble. You don't have to go and build your own hardware anymore. You can simply bring software right to the wrist. I think some people might have been asking questions online. I don't know if there's any. Bit short? OK.
But you'll be around still for a while? So I heard that Eric is still looking for his, or thinking of Halloween costumes. So if you get good ideas, maybe you can go and find him around.
Yes.
Please give a big hand to Eric.
Thanks very much.